Okay. Well, I'm here with Cate Montana, one of my favorite authors. We met because I interviewed Cate for this book, The E Word, Ego, Enlightenment, and Other Essentials. And since that time, she has written another book. It's called Cracking the Matrix. Do you want to hold that up, Cate?
I
Yes, Cracking the Matrix. And the subtitle is The Keys to,
14 keys to individual and global freedom.
which we sure all need right now.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
So, Cate and I are going to talk about the evolution of her enlightenment today, from the E word to cracking the matrix, because I think she agrees with me. We don't it. Some people wake up with a bang, and the first try at something, they're awake and ready to go for it. But I do believe that most of us wake up incrementally. At least I can say with probably every book I ever read that had anything to do with enlightenment. Every time I did, I had aha moments. And because of what I did for a living, I had to read all the books that I had to do interviews with. So
You did.
I have a library of them now. And so I'm finally at the point where the person I need to depend on is myself. I need to look inward for that. And so I'm going to let Cate talk about her journey. So Cate, take it from here.
Waking up. Oh my God, what a subject.
Yes.
Yeah, I spent 45 years in the whole spiritual new age arena. I was a material girl until I was 30, and then it was like, well, that's not working. I did everything I was supposed to do, made money, got a good education, did all things right as best I could. And I woke up at 30 and divorced, and I was like, I'm miserable. What the heck is going on? So that's when the only other place I hadn't looked was inward. So that started my spiritual journey. And very rapidly I learned about the E word, enlightenment, waking up, ascension, becoming enlightened, waking up. And that, in my limited understanding, 40 years ago, God, 40 years, um, was, yeah, suddenly I would be all, know all. I would be in a state of bliss and love and light and roses and unicorns and
Yep.
fairies and yeah. And that was my concept of awakening.
Me too.
And everybody else I knew, and most people I still know, actually, for that matter, that are still pretty much still caught in the spirituality bubble. But anyway, I never in a million years, Linda, thought that waking up was going to entail seeing, having the wool pulled from my eyes and seeing what's really been done to humanity and seeing the prison that I was of consciousness that I was raised in and trapped in all of my life, all of the programming pieces that kept me small, unrealized, unfulfilled, that I struggled with against my chains of my humanity, which was my programming that was invisible to me. And which was no wonder I transferred out of the material to the spiritual. And then it was just like, Calgon, take me away. God, take me away.
I
You know,
remember that commercial.
really,
Calgon,
um,
take me away. Yes.
Calgon, take me away. And I had no clue how programmed I was to despise my humanity, how programmed I was to despise myself, to not trust myself. So everything that I sought was outside of me. And
Mhm.
then, of course, part of that is the whole psychology self-improvement program.
Yep.
And which is it's all part and parcel, whether you're looking to attain enlightenment and God, or whether you're looking to self-improve, it all comes from the foundational belief that you're broken, that there's something wrong with you, and the only way you can possibly escape this condition, the human condition, is to look outside yourself and get enough information to bootstrap yourself up high enough, okay?
Yes.
And it's a never-ending process. And you look after 40 years and go, well, okay, I wrote about enlightenment, Linda, because I spent days in a non-egoic, completely non-dual reality that I can only use the enlightenment label for. So yes, huge ahas and insights and spiritual expansion, and I wouldn't trade a minute of it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But then 2020 happened, and I, amongst other things, I'm a health journalist. And
Oh,
you know Lynn McTaggart, right? She
yeah,
wrote The Intention Experiment, Circle of Eight, Power of Eight, all
I
of that.
met her. Yes.
Yeah, Lynn's marvelous. Well, anyway, she and her husband Brian started a health magazine in the UK called What Doctors Don't Tell You, probably about 25 years ago.
Mhm.
And I've been one of their reporters for about 15 years. And because I was raised in a medical household, my grandfather was a allopathic doctor surgeon, but he was also a homeopath. So I was raised with homeopathy. So when COVID hit, my first go-to was I pitched Lynn an article to write about homeopathic treatment for COVID.
Mhm.
So it's March 2020, early on. And at this point, I've interviewed doctors, homeopaths around the world. I interviewed Jeremy Sher from South Africa, one of the world's foremost homeopathic epidemiologists. By that time in March, he'd already treated almost 1,000 COVID patients, strictly with homeopathy.
Oh,
Not one went to the hospital, and not one was sick past 7 days.
ooh.
So I wrote the article about homeopathy and how to treat COVID, thinking, oh, phew, don't have to worry about that. And I stocked up on the remedies that were specific for it at that point.
Mhm.
And then went, okay. And then other doctors that I would talk to about other matters, we would sidebar material, naturopaths and acupuncturists, Chinese herbalists. They'd all talk to me about all of their cures for COVID.
Uh-huh.
And then the rest, but then we got hit with what we got hit with, the mandates, the insanity, the lockdowns, the masking, mm.
Yes.
And it rocked my world. It was against everything that all of my intelligence and all my deep research and talking with some of the world's finest physicians and medical researchers was showing me was a nasty but absolutely treatable bug. And yet we were being told it's impossible to treat, do nothing. If you can't breathe, go to the hospital. And then you were put on a ventilator and remdesivir and had a 97% chance of dying. 97%. Anyway, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, so I'm missing something. I'm missing something so big. How could this lie and this horrible treatment be perpetrated on humanity? How is this possible? What have I missed? And at that point, Linda, I didn't know what to call my research, except I started looking into the nature of evil.
Oh, that was the first thing that came to you to look.
That was because what I was looking at was pure evil. And I didn't have any other word for it. And so I started researching. And in very short order, I was blown away to realize, okay, I was raised Christian and in the Episcopal Church, whiskey palians, Catholic light. And oh God. And so, I was no stranger to Satan and the devil and all that, but it was so, it was ludicrous. Nobody really believed in it. And if that was for the Baptists. Bless their hearts.
It was.
Anyway, it really was. God, excuse me. I'm just recovering from a cough. But so I was shocked to realize that as far back as I could trace it, about 6,000 years, every civilization
Yes,
in
everyone.
every culture on every continent has a name and a description for a
Yeah.
non-human, non-physical, interdimensional, parasitic intelligence dragging us down. The Greeks called these beings the archons. The Hawaiian kahunas here in the islands where I live called them the Eepa. I read a wonderful book called Watiko by Paul Levy. And the Algonquin tribes in Native America referred to these beings as Watiko.
Yes,
Other tribes called them Wendigo. Tibetan Buddhists referred to them as the hungry ghosts. Um, yeah, yeah. The Pistis
surprised?
Sophia.
Were
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
were you surprised at all of those
I
names?
was shocked. I was shocked because they weren't describing, a red-faced thing with horns and a pitchfork. Hungry ghosts, parasitic intelligences that degrade one's thoughts and that pick at one's emotions and goad.
Mhm.
That was something. Okay, I get the goading, the pitchfork analogy, okay, but it was so subtle what I was reading, the influences about this non-physical influence, because we think of the devil as physical,
Yes.
you know, horns and tail and pitchfork.
Pitchfork.
And so all of a sudden I was introduced to something non-physical, and I couldn't help at that point but recall my own encounters with these entities.
So you had them yourself, but you didn't have a name for them then? Had this
Not
occurred?
really. Astral beings is the when I first started meditating, when I decided not to be a material girl like Madonna and I decided to be a spiritual girl, I didn't have a teacher. I just left my job in network television and, and rented a one-room cabin in the woods up in the North Georgia mountains on a 100-acre farm,
Brave girl.
and with my dogs and my cat and my Lipizan stallion, and just meditated. I mean, I meditated 4 to 8 hours a day. And I didn't know what meditation was except well, it must be looking inward to find my true self, whatever that is.
Mhm.
So that's what I did. I just looked inward. Well, within a month of starting this, actually less than that, probably within weeks, I started experiencing astral attacks. I would be literally pulled out of my body at night. I could hear shrieking laughter, demonic laughter in the distance, feel hands on my body, and then my spirit would be pulled out of my body. My astral body would be pulled out, and I'd be thrown into graveyards and hell pits with demons. It was just like it was insane. It
Yeah.
was insane. I
We
had
would go nuts.
I, I had zero preparation, nada. I had just finished my master's degree in psychology, and with this going on, I actually reached out to my psychology advisor and asked him for a reference to a couple of psychiatrists in Atlanta because I needed to get a handle on what the hell was going on. And so anyway, I ended up on the couch in this very expensive doctor's $250 an hour back in 1985.
That's a lot for then.
That was a lot for then. Anyway, fortunately, the first hour was free. It was an assessment. So I lay there and I spilled my guts and, trying to ignore the bars on the window and the padding on the door. I mean, the door was literally had about 8 inches of padding.
Oh,
So
God.
nobody out in the ante room
Here.
could hear anybody scream or cry or whatever. Anyway, and I told him about the demons and I told him about being pulled out of my body and I was having visions and and I felt really kind of unburdened at the end of the hour and I sat up and I went, "Well, Doc, what do you think?" And he just tapped his pen on his paper and he just finally looked at me. He said, "Well, I'd like to start by seeing you 3 times a week for the next 6 months and we'll reassess after that." And my psychology training just went ding ding. He
Yeah.
thinks I'm a schizophrenic. Shit. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Okay. We're not monitoring.
He thinks I'm a schizophrenic. Oh my God. So highly depressed, I left his office. But something told me that he didn't know that I wasn't, that this was real, what I was experiencing. And fortunately, I had a friend who had a psychologist friend who was into spirituality. And I went to go see her and I told her the exact same story. And she was at the end of her hour. She was like, "Oh, well, sounds like you've cracked your Kundalini and you're having out of body experiences and you're having astral attacks." by astral beings. And I was like, I didn't even have a name for any of this up until that point. And I was like, Kundalini? Anyway, but she put words on it. She didn't. I remember she told me, she said, I'm not worried about that stuff. It just shows you're evolving and growing. She said, I'm really actually concerned about your relationship with your stepfather that you talked about. So I saw her for once a week for six months, and then that was that. But I had forgotten about that, Linda. I had forgotten conveniently that I was raised in a haunted house, that growing up, poltergeist activity in a very old antebellum farmhouse in Virginia was happened pretty much every night.
And I'm sure it did because of what occurred there, before slavery, etc. Yeah.
Mhm. Plus, when it was occurring, I was going through puberty. And the vast majority of poltergeist activity is actually triggered by young girls going through puberty.
Hormone. Yep.
Hormones and all that spiritual spattering, all energetic spattering all over the place. So, but again, here's the trick about the awakening and what a process it is. So here I am, an intelligent, educated human being, and I had no idea these entities really existed, even though I'd experienced them. Then I started reading about them back then, and then I just pushed it all aside like, whatever, what's for dinner? So fast forward to 2020, and I'm doing this research and I'm uncovering all these different references to these astral entities, whatever you wanted to call them. And I was like, ha, they're real. Ding, 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 ding. So the more, and so then the next question for me this is the process of awakening. This is the awakening nobody ever talks about because it isn't fun.
No, it's not.
And it's the unveiling of how we've been tricked, and who wants to learn that they've been tricked? And so I went back and started asking myself, well, okay, God, all of my research says humanity's known about this presence, this interdimensional, parasitic, non-human intelligence for thousands of years.
Mhm.
Why don't we know about it?
Nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it. Why? Because Christianity came along and presents us with the ludicrousness of the red-skinned guy with horns and a tail. And how, I mean, to coin Harry Potter phrase, ridiculare. It's not that, egregores and stuff can't show up looking like that. I'm not saying that that's not possible, but to create the devil as the juxtaposition to God, and God actually created Lucifer who fell, and God's responsible for the devil. It's just like the whole story was just nonsense as far as I was concerned growing up. So I was like, well, okay, making something ludicrous is one way to get us to ignore it. Making something so freaking terrifying that we don't want to look at it
Yes.
is another highly efficient way of not looking at this stuff, which is what most Western religions have succeeded in doing. Now, then you spin in the New Age movement. Now, what have they done? The whole New Age movement is look over there.
Spiritual bypassing.
Spiritual bypassing. Look up. Don't look over. No, don't look down there. No, look up. This is where you want to go. And so I was like, okay. So we have make it ludicrous, make it terrifying, make it inconsequential. That's why we don't know about it. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we've got Hollywood spewing out all of these, geez, Louise, did you ever see Linda Blair in The Exorcist back in the 70s?
I'll tell you, I never watched TV after that. I was so scared when I watched that movie.
You never went back in the water.
Oh, I didn't. I won't do Stephen King. I won't do any of that.
God,
No
me
scared
neither.
movies. No.
Oh my God, it scared the you know what out of me. Anyway, so we've got the fear factor, we've got the ludicrous factor, and we've got the look away bypassing factor. And so that's fundamentally why we don't deal with it. Which is staggering, but then again, this is the awakening. You peel off one veil and you see the next level, and then you understand the next level. And so this awakening process, to get back to your very original question, however many minutes ago, um, is this journey of, yes, it's wonderful to be in bliss and to be in love and la 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 la, but like all spiritual people I've ever met, at a certain point there came a place of, why am I still spinning my wheel? Why do I feel like I'm still spinning my wheels? Why do I feel like I really haven't progressed? Why am I feeling like, yes, I've had ahas, I wouldn't trade them for anything. And why do I feel like I'm still kind of in the same place? And this is why, is because we were completely ignoring the physical.
Well,
Because,
we're born into such a paradox of good and evil, black and white, and yet they ignore the pretty much the black, except for what you see is happening, in the world today. It's finally coming to light.
yeah, yeah. The thing of it is that the common denominator in all of religion and all of spirituality is fundamentally trashing the human body.
Yes. Amen.
It's the trap. It's the boat anchor weighing you down. It's the one thing standing in your way to heaven. And that adds on to the whole concept of original sin, which is the foundation of all of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity.
Yes.
And so it's been fascinating because, okay, the next level of the journey, Linda, for me, of waking up, has been realizing everything's been turned on its head, which
Yeah.
is inversion is a energetic signature of this presence of the, I just call them the archons because I like the Greeks and they had a handle on a lot of stuff. So
Yeah,
I
they
just refer
did.
to these
Yeah, they did.
beings as the archons. And inversion is their signature. And so I was like, all my life I'd been trying to get out of my body because the body is the bad place. And religion told me that. And then spirituality reinforced the body bad, God good, out there good. So I was never allowed to integrate.
Ah,
I
integration is extremely important.
I could not come into my body because I had to push that away. So I was never allowed to come into my own power. I was never allowed to integrate on all levels, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. I was kept separate and fragmented in my own being. How the hell can we be powerful and thrive when we're fragmented and taught to be that way and taught to seek out fragmentation?
There are very few people who have taught about the divinity that lives with the spark of the divine that lives within the body. But, Jesus said, it's I am, you are, we are. The Father and I are one. You're part of it. And yet people skipped over that part in the Bible.
Yep. Yep. One of the most fascinating, do you mind if I just keep rattling
Oh,
on
no, you
here?
just rattle on.
So one of the most telling, all right, so first question is what the hell is going on? Oh my God, these interdimensional, parasitic, non-human, non-physical beings. Got it. Why don't we know about it? Okay, fear, ludicrousness, and look away. Okay, bypass. Okay, fine. How do they manipulate us? That was the third question. How have we been caught in a matrix? God, I love that movie. Anyway,
I did too.
oh, so many that woke so many people up, or at least it didn't, again, waking up at a certain level because so many millions of people went ding ding ding, something ding ding ding, something's going ding 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 ding.
Made them
Yeah,
think. Made them
made
think.
them think. Made them think. So, so in this is the perfect example of how these beings work and how this influence, because it's an influence. You know, that whole image of a angel on one shoulder and a devil on the other,
Yeah.
whisper, 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 influence, influence, influence. These are energetic influencers. They don't have the physical, they don't have energy to pick up a pen, but they can infiltrate and eventually even overtake and possess humans and take over. And then they've got hands and heads and minds and mouths and ways to create and manipulate their own reality here on this planet. So, original sin, when I realized how I had been tricked, how we'd all been tricked to despise the body, and to fear the earth, to fear nature.
Yes.
It's the devil's playground.
And we are nature. That's all that we are nature. We have a brain, but different. That's it. That's it.
That's it. Our perceptual acumen and abilities are different from other animals around us. But so I looked at original sin and I was like, that is pretty much your first primary body bad. You're born into a body, you're cooked. That's it. Story over. Done. And you got to battle and accept God and accept the rules to be good enough and pure enough to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
Accept the rules, accept outside authority. You better do that or you're
Keyword, outside authority.
keyword outside authority, religious hierarchy, religious structure, rules, authority over the pyramid of hierarchy. So, original sin was introduced into the Christian ethos in around 300 some odd AD by St. Augustine of Hippo.
Oh, of course, he did it.
Yes, he did. He did it. Now, St. Augustine was very interesting being. His dad was a pagan and his mom was Christian.
Mhm.
And he came into a very fractured family, shall we say,
Yes.
with multiple influences. And he was a drunk. He was a reprobate. He was a bad boy. He would chase the women and drank the everything. And his mother just despaired. And then one day he ran across the teachings of Mani, the prophet of Babylon,
Don't know.
who in about 235, about 100 years previous, had developed the religion called Manichaeism.
Don't know that one.
Now, Mani, the prophet of Babylon, is Mani, Mani, the prophet of Babylon. His primary core teaching was the sinfulness of the body, that the physical is corrupt, the earth and nature were corrupt, would lead us astray, and that one's whole battle in life was to battle the body, negate it, and try to strive to get out there to God. And so original sin originated with Mani, the prophet of Babylon. So 100 years later, Augustine comes along and goes, that's why I'm a bad boy. That's why I'm making mommy guilty. It's my body, bad body. So he sobered up and converted to Christianity, much to the delight of his mother. And he brought original sin concept into the Council of Hippo in 326 or something like that AD. Don't trust me on the exact year. And 107 and 1,700 years later, we have hundreds of generations of Christians, Muslims, and Jews who have been weaned on the concept of original sin and how their body is corrupt and how nature and the world is bad and sinful. And we have passed this inheritance of guilt and shame epigenetically down through hundreds of generations now. And we look at today's society and we wonder why self-esteem issues are so prevalent. Well, hello. So
They continue to be with body shaming, the internet, unfortunately, Facebook. It just keeps getting worse and worse.
absolutely. And it all goes back to this one teaching. Now, what has this got to do with the interdimensional influences of the archons? Augustine taught that Mani was visited by an angel of God, and that is where he got the teaching of original sin.
Oh,
Mani never said that. Mani said he was visited at night by a voice. that told him over and over and over relentlessly about the sins of the body and of the earth until he finally just went, well, this must be from the unseen. It's got to be God. So he took it and ran with it, but he never said it was from an angel, and he never said he got the message from God. He actually called it his other self,
Hmm.
but it was a disincarnate voice. Whisper, 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 nudge, nudge. A mental emotional nudge. That's what they do. That's how the archons work. The archons introduced, in my mind, the most crippling, devastating, destructive belief that humanity has ever embraced straight into our minds and souls and hearts. And that's how they work. That's how they influence.
And have lasted for centuries.
Thousands of years.
We can say the buck stops here.
Damn straight it does.
Yeah. You know, I often thought for myself is like, why has it taken so many years for me to accept that? And I read it in the Bible, I and the Father are one. I and him, he and me, and we and them. It's beautifully spoken. And it reached out and grabbed me then, but it took me all these years later to actually be able to accept that. And it's the programming that comes from culture, from society, from schools, from church. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And
Is
it's
everywhere.
hard to accept, and it shouldn't be.
The,
It shouldn't be
the
that.
level, no, well, the level, and here's back to awakening. The level of programming, the level of brainwash, there's no other word for it but
Yes,
brainwashing,
yes.
is beyond comprehension. It has affected everybody on this planet to layers and layers and layers of lies about ourselves, about our nature, about human nature, about who and what we are. Spirit has been completely divorced from our nature. We
Yeah.
have been separated deliberately from our true selves, and we have been taught for thousands of years to despise, hate, loathe, and distrust ourselves,
Amen. Amen.
and to go outside for authority because we're pieces of poo
Yeah.
and need to be led and whipped into shape. That's the whole agenda right there in a nutshell. And
Yeah.
that's what people need to finally see.
Well, hopefully people watching this video,
Yeah, well, hopefully. I
hopefully,
mean, go ahead.
no, it's, either that you actually, you got started on, I just happened to look at this. Bodies are us. I don't know if you realize it or not, but this was the groundwork was being laid when you were writing this book to graduate to the next level. That's what I talk about is that it's not you wake up to all of this all at once and know the whole truth. You
No.
just get it in incremental pieces. I'm
Yep.
glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Oh God, Linda, I wouldn't trade where I'm at. Has this been a harsh journey this last 5 years? Absolutely. And I wouldn't trade it for I wouldn't trade it for anything because finally I'm coming into my own being. My own true self
Yes.
is now, there was almost a rebirthing. I have to say, a Paul, what is it? Saul on the way to Tarsus fell
Oh,
off his
yes.
horse and
Yes.
became
Fell off his
Paul.
horse. Yes.
And it was that kind of a moment about a year and a half ago when I finally, at the very bottom line of, God, I can publish books, I can be successful, I can do and show up and be the person I'm supposed to be. And yet, underneath all of that is always there's this place of doubt and self-recrimination
Yes.
and self-loathing that where you're a bad person. Well, here we go to the brainwashing and the programming. And I had no idea how deeply, perpetually, infinitely ingrained that was in me, and how it was not enabling me to shine. Boy, that's a paltry way of putting it. Um, self-loathing is at the bottom of addiction and porn and self-mutilation, the whole night murder. It's the whole That's the whole thing, self-loathing. And when I finally I literally almost, and this was almost an aha moment, probably happened in a matter of a couple of days. But when I all the cumulative 4 years of research and talking about this with people such as yourself, and getting deeper and deeper and seeing more and more layers of programming and how it's like everything is nothing is the way we've been taught, not from education, not from science, not from medicine, not from politics, not from economics, not from philosophy, not from religion, not from spirituality. It's all been twisted.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful truths underlie and underpin all of it, and it's been twisted. We've been twisted into thinking that we're twisted. So when I really got it,
Yeah.
when I got it was like taking that 8,000-pound gorilla off my back. Literally, almost overnight, Linda, it was like there was a switch flipped. And it was like, oh my God, I'm blameless. Have I been complicit? Yeah. Have I been stupid? Sure. Have I been greedy and selfish in my life? Of course. I have been all these very human things. But evil, dirty, depraved, sinful?
No.
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 I get cold chills just there.
Something about it.
It's changed everything. It's changed everything. I have seen the light, and the light is me and you.
Amen. I have seen the
Oh,
light. I like that. I like that phrase. I have seen the light, and the light is me.
and you.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God. So, yeah, do I still struggle? Well, yeah, of course. I don't know what human is. I am only now just discovering what being human is. After having tried to run away from it all of my life, all of a sudden I'm down, I'm not up and out, I'm down and in going, wow, what's going on in here? Wow, who am I really and what can I do with all of this?
Yes, I really do think that we are learning. We're just learning to be what it means to be human. I mean, we've assumed that some things are, typical, but we're really getting, and I have a group of people that has one thing that we have talked about is we're babes in the woods. We're just now learning.
And simultaneously, we are magnificent beings of pure love.
Yeah. We're far more powerful. I've always loved that saying that Marianne Williamson says
Uh,
it's not our darkness that we fear, but
but our light.
our light and our
Yep.
power.
Well, we've been taught because how could we trust our power if we've been taught that we're bad and wrong and depraved and not to be trusted?
So, so sad. But the good thing is that we are waking up to it. And I think for myself, the first time that I encountered that was when I sent you the article, I think that I wrote on I'm trying to remember, Sherry Mitchell, who's an indigenous. She's an Algonquin
Yeah.
indigenous person. But that was the first time that I had ever heard the term for the giant that comes out of the woods and to to take care of the people that are messing up the land. But you have to get to a point where it's really bad before the giant awakens. But that was the first time I ever heard the terminology referred to. Of course, I'd never really spoken or interviewed any indigenous people. So I went, oh, what is that? I need to be thinking about it. And then you give all of that in your book of the years of how many years have we been talking about that? And the names. Everybody has a name for it.
Yep. These beings are very, very real. And everybody is and it's not, and here's the other thing. It's nothing, they're nothing to be afraid of because as I say, they don't have the power to pick up a pen. They can influence, absolutely. But the key is seeing through the illusion, the veil, the programming. Once you start seeing how we've been programmed to believe actually what they've taught us to believe, here we're the creators. Again, not enough power to pick up a pen. They have to use us to destroy ourselves. They can't destroy us. We're the creators. We're creating our own chains, our own imprisonment, and our own destruction
Mhm.
by our beliefs.
How do I kind of think of, maybe this is my explanation for it. It's like there's when we talk about one consciousness, there's one consciousness, but there's a collective, it's what's in the collective consciousness. To me, that's where as you call them, the archons are.
Mm.
It's like, because, for thousands of years, humanity has been accumulating that in the collective. So maybe there is one consciousness. So we wonder how one consciousness could be divided.
Oh, it's not divided, it's multiplicity. It's not a division. That's the whole thing. That's again, God, perception and languaging is just
Yeah,
crucial
yeah, yeah.
because we are the one and the many. It's the mystery. It's the absolute mystery of the one and the many. Absolutely.
And there are multiple layers that's how I look at it, is there are multiple layers of consciousness.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But here's one of the real jaw droppers. And I didn't get this until a couple of years into my investigation. I ended up have you ever heard of a woman by the name of Jacqueline Hobbs?
No, no.
AKA Oracle Girl. You ought to check her out.
Well,
She's
the Oracle girl, yes, not
yeah,
Jacqueline Hobbs, though. Okay.
that's her name.
Okay.
Anyway, and so anyway, her website is oraclegirl.org. Um I was listening to Jacqueline one day and she just dropped out of the blue. Well, the interdimensional forces are from a totally different source. And then she went on and went on talked about whatever she talked about. And I was just like, "What? What other source?" Literally, it was not until that moment. This is so God, again, awakening layers, peeling away the veils.
Peel the onion.
Even though E word, I'd had I hadn't had an enlightened experiment experience because enlightenment is the absence of an I having an experience of anything. There is no personality, no person, no personal anything to identify with. There's just life.
Yes.
I am that
I
I am. That's
that
enlightenment. And so there's no Cate Montana having an enlightenment experience. Oh my God, that's such BS. So I'd already gone to the place, Linda. This is how obscure, this is how veiled we are. This is how the onion layers peel, 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 keep peeling. It's like, okay, that happened in 2007. That happened in 2007, October. In that moment, in that 3 day period, I distinctly recall walking through the garden one morning, just um, one with life, unburdened, laughing, thinking that I ever was could possibly have believed that I was Cate Montana, and believed that that was who I was. Or just a limited human being. I just laughed my ass off. And then I understood why so many of the pictures and the statues of Buddha have him laughing. It's just like I laughed and laughed for days. But at one point, I looked downstream at the rest of my life and I realized in that moment, if my body had literally dropped dead right there, I would have walked on just as I am, my other body. I wouldn't even have noticed. And I looked at downstream and I was like, oh my God, there's no death waiting for me. Laughter, laughter, laughter. But then I looked upstream and I realized I had never been born.
Amen. You were not born.
I was never born.
And
Therefore, I was never
never died.
created.
Never created.
I was never created. Now, I had that realization the 18 years ago. It didn't sink in until 3 years ago, what that implied.
See, it takes a while to sink in.
Takes a while to sink in, this waking up process.
Yes.
It implied that there is no God in any creator sense that we think of it. That took a couple of years of burning away a whole bunch of illusions and that I held on to for dear life is like, oh, dear, blasphemy, on and on and on. So finally I came out the other side of that and it was just like, okay. And then I heard Jacqueline say the other source, and I was like, holy crap, there's another source? I had no idea I was so bound by monotheistic thinking. There's only one. The one is the all. The all is the one. The devil is God. Child abuse is God.
Oh.
Pedophilia is God. Satanic ritual rape is God. All of a sudden, that dropped. And I was like, holy moly. Very clearly, this interdimensional parasitic, the archons come from another source altogether. They know not love. They are not of the light. They have no creative capacity whatsoever, which is why they're parasitic. They have to feed to survive. And they feed on our light and they feed on our emotions.
Yes.
And the more they can goad us to division, chaos, self-hatred, jealousy, all the low frequency stuff they love. They can feed on the higher emotions as well. But boy, do they love chaos and self-hatred. The whole goal is for frickin' feeding so that they can survive and eventually host into these bodies. Once we actually introduce AI and get lace implants and become
Oh,
transhuman,
oh, oh.
then we lose our source connection. And then there is a host body that can operate at that low frequency that they're at. Then they've got what they want, which is
And
embodiment.
then they can destroy themselves.
Well, that is their signature frequency is self-destruction. We're the ones of the light. We're the creators. So the whole thing about when we get what we're dealing with and that we are not bad, wrong, evil, and yada, yada, they have convinced us to convince ourselves that we are them.
Scary stuff. Scary,
It's astounding, Linda.
scary, scary stuff.
That's what I got. I'm so glad you picked the awakening theme because it is as a layer and an unfolding, and then the next, oh, holy Moses.
Yeah.
And then the next, oh, holy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
picked a really lousy time to quit drinking. It kind of left me a couple of years ago, but and every once in a while I think about a martini. I go, that'd be, nah, don't need it. But it's just like,
well, then it just gives them something else to feed on, truthfully. That because that's I think people who are under the spell of alcohol, as we know, are influenced. So,
hmm,
and they're
oh my
so
God, I think,
they're in the dark. They're often paranoid people, so that's not a good place. You can be glad you're out of that.
oh God, I'm totally glad. I remember years and years and years ago when I first got into spirituality, one of my first spiritual mentors, highly psychic guy, anyway, and he didn't drink. And he would tell me about he'd pass bars and he'd be driving by and he said, you wouldn't believe what's hanging off the people and hanging off the doors and hanging off the lights and hanging off the bottles.
Oh my
He
God.
said, you if you could see what I see, you wouldn't go near a bar.
Oh wow.
Didn't do anything for me. I spent plenty of time in bars until I didn't, but it's like, but yeah, absolutely. Alcohol, all of the addictions, it's all doorways. And bless our hearts, we are so messed with. We are so crippled. We are so demeaned that we're desperate for any surcease. Give me that other martini. Give me that shot. Give me the porn. Give me the work. Distract me, please, from myself. Bless our hearts. When
Yeah.
you see this and you start to understand the true beauty of what and who we are and what's been done to us, the only thing we're guilty of, Linda, is being tricked.
Yes. I call it programmed. I mean, it's the same thing. It's just your program. And when you're young, you just accept it. I mean, you don't really question you all those people outside of yourself are authorities. They're
Absolutely.
they're doctors, they're,
Mhm.
they're spiritual. And especially, I've been reading lately about the downfall of some of our spiritual teachers because of the files that are
Oh
coming.
yeah,
And so but the one thing that I was taught years ago is all idols have clay feet. And I
absolutely.
and I learned I didn't have to learn that lesson myself. I watched other people fall apart when they're even become suicidal when their teacher was exposed. And I
Yeah.
went, I'm not going there. I'll read the books and I'll absorb the message because it's the message that they're passing along. I don't need to worship the messenger. But it's just a lot of people are losing their way because of that, and they don't know where to turn to.
No. That's why this whole conversation is so critically important right now, is because people don't know where to turn. They're looking outside and the whole outside is crumbling right before their eyes.
Yeah.
And if they don't get the message very quickly that they can trust turning with to themselves,
Yeah. Yes.
then they're screwed. Then humanity is, I mean, and there's this huge bifurcation happening. I totally see the splitting of the worlds. There's only so long that the light will, the light is growing so incredibly fast on this planet.
Yes,
One way of viewing all of this is that, oh my God, the world is going to hell.
but it's not.
And it is. But the other way of looking at it is there's so much light bringing up the darkness to view.
Yeah.
It's pushing out what it isn't, and
Yes.
it's leaving. And it's a you know what show on the way out.
Yes, it is. Thank God. I mean, I when I started writing for Natural Awakenings, Paul Ray, do you remember his book, The Cultural Creators? He said
Absolutely.
then that there were 53 million people, and I think that was just the number in the US, that not,
Yes, it was. There was like another 60 million in Europe.
so that number has continued to increase. And those are the people that are holding up. And there are more that are coming to that light. And so
Absolutely.
I've always remembered that. I thought, they have to still be around, and and their forces have to keep building, and they are. I
Yep.
find so many people on YouTube doing podcasts that have to do with waking up and telling the truth. It's
Oh
not
my God.
some
These
pie in the sky thing. No.
No, these 20 somethings are out there nailing the whole everything. It's just like, right.
Yeah, go. There's a doctor that I was listening to this morning. His name's Dr. Samuel Lee.
Mm.
He was a psychiatrist, and he's doing retreats up in Florida. And he was talking about the things that you're talking about. So there are other people. His name is Dr. Samuel Lee, and he's in, I don't know where in Florida he is, I think around Tampa. He's doing retreats. You can find him. I found quite a few of podcasts on the
Lee or Leigh?
it's my middle name, Lee. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Yep.
I know there's so few people that, people talk about the corruption and unfortunately, the superficial first glance, like with the Epstein files and all of this, just validates our low opinion of ourselves. It just validates, yep, we're depraved. We're all screwed. I think I'll just slip my wrists and drink. At first glance, that is could be the tendency. And that's why I'm so happy to talk about this, is because no, 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 no. This is the light pushing out everything that we are not. Have people been taken over by these entities in this force? Intelligent? Absolutely. Look at it. It's right there in front of us.
Do you
These
find
are the
that
people who've given up their light, given over to this, and done satanic ritual, killed children, drunk blood, all of it, all in the name of power.
yes. Do you find many people want to talk about this? I mean, are you able to?
I've been surprised. Actually, I got approached by a young gal the other day to do a show, and I took a look at the graphic that was in the email, and it was like this happy, gorgeous 20 something. And I was like, oh God, this has got to be as superficial as they come. No, she was totally into it. She was like, yeah. So I have been consistently overjoyed to see that people are not shying away from this subject.
Building an audience. You're building an audience.
Slow but sure, and I haven't been trying again. I can't get it up to self-market. Just can't.
Yeah. Well, that's the hard part of trying, when you do something for like a Hay House, then you get all these people behind you, ended up on the bestseller and all that, but no. And everybody and their brother is trying to sell how to write a book, how to write a successful book, and it's just everywhere.
Plus, I have talked about this to some people, but not to you. When the E word came out,
Yeah.
there was a huge, well, 2 weeks after it was released. And Simon Schuster, my editor, was sure it was going to be a bestseller. She was like, "This is the next Power of Now," and I was like, "Yeah." And 2 weeks into the book tour, I realized I was on the wrong path. I realized I had way too much of my own ego invested in being that person up on stage in
Oh,
white telling people how it is. I wanted that bad. I also very pure and very, and good information and absolute
it
la
was
la
an
la la.
excellent book. Excellent.
Excellent book. And I recognize, it clear as a bell, I got the message. If you go down this path and you become successful like you're aiming at, you're not going to go where you want to go. It's going to ruin you. And so to this day, my editor won't speak to me.
Oh,
Ooh.
oh.
Because I did what I had contracted to do, but then I pulled all energy from the book. And then I went into a dark hole of despair for a year. Because I was a failure. And now, and now changing gears, but I know the seduction of wanting to be that person in power.
Yes, it is very seductive, very seductive.
Yeah, because we come from the place of I'm a piece of poo. Therefore, I will unconsciously do anything and everything to prove to myself that I'm not a piece of poo. And the brighter I can shine, and the more money I can make, and the prettier I can get, and the more powerful and somebody, out in the world I can become, that's supposed to be the antidote and the tonic to the self-belief that we never get beyond until we see exactly what we're talking about.
Well, I'm glad you stuck with it, Kate. Really, I am. I'm so glad. And I'm glad that I did this for grokkingwholeness.info. I need to give them a plug. That's our website, and it's all about consciousness, but there's no frills. This is just the truth and nothing but the truth. So I invite anybody to visit it. And we have probably about 45 videos on now that we've interviewed different people. And we're trying to build an audience as you are. And I'm so glad to have given you this audience. And it's really nice to see you because it's been probably a year or 2 years, three. Oh my goodness, since we
I bet it's been 3 years since we've talked.
I kept meaning to get to Hawaii. My daughter, when she went to Hawaii, said it's just like being in heaven with your eyes open
And your feet in the sand.
and your feet in the sand. Yeah. So you landed in a good place. So
I didn't know how much healing I needed, Linda. I had no earthly idea how much healing I needed.
well, that's what
But
she said that island does for you.
Maui has been a healing balm to my very being. There was a lot that needed to be dropped and addressed in the last 8 years that I've been here.
Well, I'm glad you had that. Are you planning on another book or are you done now?
Oh no, where's that? Okay. Since cracking the matrix, I've written Gender Patriarchy and Sexual Mind Control Breaking Free.
Oh, I didn't know you did that. Okay, well,
Yeah.
glad you mentioned that then.
Um,
Yeah.
that's part of the journey of talking about how this influence has influenced us. And the it's part of it's all about the programming. It's all about the matrix, but just with the sexual and the gender. orientation and how that's been used and twisted, that we've used against ourselves.
Do you have a website you want to tell us about, Kate?
Sure. Two websites. My basic website is catemontana.com, www. And but I'm also on Substack, and that's the letter C, Substack, C, I'm sorry, C Montana dot Substack dot com.
I have
And
read.
I do ratings every week.
Oh, do you do it once a week or just or a couple times once a week?
Once a week.
I
Yep.
have read some of your Substacks and I've sent you comments on them.
Yes, you have. That's how we ended up talking here.
Yes. Well, I know that we've some of us, well, there's four of us at Grokking Wholeness, and that we all got together and decided that this was what we wanted to do to help raise consciousness for
Yeah.
humanity. We're all, way past youth of going, the rah rah, the cheerleaders and all that. We're sort of the quiet gang. And so it's just a way, and I'm glad that you do the Substack. We've thought about it.
Mhm.
We just haven't got there yet.
It's a really great platform, I must admit, and it's one of the it's one of the few seriously intelligent platforms I've found.
Do you get people commenting on your Substack?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you
Yep.
build an audience with that, like you would with
Mhm.
a website.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We might follow your lead someday.
I'm glad to talk about it with you anytime. Wow, I'm so glad you reached out, Linda. Thank you.
Well, thank you.